behind Alejandro Garnacho's Manchester derby snub explained as Ruben Amorim admits the winger has not been frozen out long-term. Alejandro Garnacho was axed from the Manchester United squad over a show of dissent towards head coach Ruben Amorim, it has emerged. Garnacho was dropped for the Manchester derby last month along with Marcus Rashford, and has been on the bench for the last 4 games. Mail Sport understands the Argentina winger appeared to turn his back on Amorim and walk away while the United boss was giving him instructions on the touchline before he came on against Victoria Plzen in the Europa League 3 days before the derby. Representatives for the 20-year-old player denied that he was being disrespectful and put it down to a misunderstanding. United declined to comment, but sources insist there is no rift between the two and Garnacho has not been frozen out. However, they acknowledged that Amorim has set exacting standards for the players since taking over. Garnacho is one of United's brightest young stars, but the decision to bench him has raised doubts over whether he fits into Amorim's 3-4-3 system. Joshua Zirkzee was picked ahead of him on the left side of United's attack for Monday's defeat to Newcastle, only to be substituted by Kobbie Mainoo in the first half. Rashford returned to the squad for that game as an unused substitute after a 4-match absence, but he is out of Sunday's clash with Liverpool at Anfield after missing training this week through illness. It comes amid fresh speculation over Rashford's future in the January transfer window, although he has rejected 3 offers to move to the Saudi Pro League worth up to €35 million a year. "It's the same situation," said Amorim on Friday. "At the moment, he's ill and he's not training so well. See in the future. But he's like a normal player, then I make a selection, so it's the same. I think he's going to be out this week. He's not training. Well, see, but I think this week he's out." Meanwhile, United will trigger the 1-year option in Harry Maguire's contract at Old Trafford, with Amorim calling on the former club captain to step up in a team starving for leadership. Amorim, who also revealed that Amad Diallo is close to agreeing a new deal, spoke to Maguire at Carrington on Friday morning and confirmed the England defender will extend his contract until June 2026. Both Maguire and Diallo would become free agents in the summer if they don't sign new terms. "Amad is near, Harry Maguire is going to trigger our option," said Amorim. Joshua Zirkzee was picked ahead of Garnacho on the left side of the attack for the Newcastle game. United will trigger the 1-year option in Harry Maguire's contract at Old Trafford. Maguire was United's captain until former manager Erik ten Hag took the armband off him and gave it to Bruno Fernandes in the summer of 2023. "I spoke with him this morning and I told him that he has to improve his game on the pitch," said Amorim. "We need him a lot, and also he has to improve as a leader, because we all know the situation that he had here. But we need him a lot in this moment, so we are going to trigger happily the option for Harry. There are moments in the career of a player that are different. He coped very well with his struggles, and when you look at our team, we are starving for leaders on the pitch. He is a leader, he has to improve that part, he has to improve his game, so we are happy to continue with Harry. If you want to be a top team, you have to be leaders, and we have that in the dressing room, but they have to step up. We have a lot of young kids also, and this moment is really hard. We can look at the table, but you are still Manchester United." United head to Anfield on the back of 4 straight defeats in all competitions, having not won there in 9 years. "We are going to face the best team this year," added Amorim. "In the moment they are better than us, but we can win any game. Man United is a viper's nest of disrespect. They have always had trouble keeping their players grounded and need some real men back in the dressing room. I feel sorry for the manager Ruben Amorim because I firmly believe he has walked into a viper's nest. And it will need everyone from the very, very top of the club and every supporter that walks through the gates at Old Trafford to believe in him for him to succeed. He has talked this week of relegation and the club needing a shock, all against a backdrop of certain players going through the motions in training and disrespecting the manager. From timekeeping to attitude to every part of your training regime, like when you play in small-sided practice games, you try to replicate match days and play with intensity. It's not like a switch you can flick on when it suits. I spoke last week about the example Bruno Fernandes sets, and I hear about Alejandro Garnacho being unhappy with the manager. Can someone remind me of just who he is? The last time I looked he was only a 20-year-old boy. One who is only one step up, on a 10-rung ladder. Who are you? He acts like a wrong-un on the football pitch and, unless he changes, he's got no chance of fulfilling what obvious potential he has. Going back to my generation and before, Manchester United have always had a problem in keeping players grounded. Then it was always about who's the next George Best, the next Dennis Law or the next Bobby Charlton. There have been good players, but whether it is the weight of the jersey, or the adulation they receive too early, it didn't happen for them. Premier League teams are forced into paying fortunes to kids because, if they don't, someone else will. But you're only ever investing in potential, and more often than not when you give a young man too much too soon they get in their armchair and never fulfill their potential. I never get tired of underlining the value of having good senior professionals in your dressing room, but there has been a drought of real men at Manchester United for over a decade now. Generally, a coach can work with his group of 25 players 4 days a week and, on match days, they are occupied with the game. In a normal week, a manager might be in their company 2 hours a day, for days of that working week. How much individual attention can he possibly give them? And that's why you need good senior professionals to help. Digging others out when they're not coming up to standards that are needed if you want to be winning trophies, and just affording time and advice to these young men, given the distractions in the modern game today. They have an enormous part to play in getting the message across, exerting standards, so that come match day there has to be less finger pointing and more looking in the mirror. Where are the senior figures here? Fernandes? Is that the best you can do? United supporters will remember Sir Alex Ferguson calling Paul Scholes out of retirement at 37, and keeping Gary Neville around the place past his sell-by date, simply because they were two fantastic types that would have trained every day like it was the last session they ever had. What an example to have for young players making their way in the game. For too long, the current United players have accepted mediocrity. You can sense it's a dressing room where individuals go, "It's not my fault." United squad has had a drought of real men for over a decade. Who are the current senior professionals? Right now, it's a very difficult watch to the who turn up for their team every other week when United concede a goal. They are just shrugging their shoulders, always looking for someone else to give them the answers. That is not the behavior of big players. They need to show what they are made of, not go hiding like they are now. Is football mirroring society where no one wants to take responsibility for their actions these days? When I joined Liverpool, it was tough schooling. I was in a dressing room with characters like Emlyn Hughes and Tommy Smith. They'd never allow you to be sloppy in training. The coach Ronnie Moran was the greatest influence on my career, but the only time he'd afford us a pat on the back was when we physically had some silverware in the dressing room. We'd say on a regular basis, "You're only happy when you're unhappy, Ronnie." And he would look at us, shake his head and say, "You should have seen the players we had in the past, son." At that point you were always made to feel inferior to the players that had gone before, individually, and collectively. But I always viewed it as motivation to get better. Apart from a few occasions under Ron Atkinson's reign, I can't remember United challenging us at the top, yet they were getting all the headlines week in, week out. Too many United players get put on a pedestal too soon and start to believe what is written or said about them. But it's not great reading now.